Hi, welcome everybody. This is our first podcast in a new series. We're starting to really bring articles to life and kind of go behind them and learn more about what exactly prompted them, challenges authors faced with them, and also opportunities for future research as well too. I'm super delighted to be joined today here with Ben and Eddie, and they're here representing their paper on behalf of their co-authors Honji and Feifei as well too. And their paper is titled "The Advertisement Puts Me Down, But I Like It." And I love this title, and it's a really kind of neat concept that you've gone through and examined as well too. And so I'm really curious to learn more about it. To start off, can I ask you to give us like a quick kind of recap of what exactly your article goes through and looks at and what it finds?
Thanks, Colin. My pleasure to join the very first podcast for JR and to further introduce our paper. So for our paper, we identify an emerging stream of ads that are unique in the way that they kind of say something negative about the audience. And in this way, we turn it as audience-targeted negative advertisements or adness. We use in-depth interviews, which is study 1 and 2 experiments, study 2 and study 3, to examine such ads. So primarily for study 1, we explore audience perceptions and feelings about such ads using interviews. And the results show that ads, they have unique features that include negativity, uniqueness, humor, etc. And it also has positive emotional influence on consumers, such as empathy. And following the study, the findings of study 1, we further designed 2 other experiments. Study 2 distinguish adness from 2 relevant ad appeal, which is humorous ads and other negative ads. We compare the ad features and negative emotions triggered by the 3 types of ads, and the results show that compared with negative ads, the ATNA has a lower level of perceived negativity and a lower level of triggered negative emotions, such as discomfort, offensiveness, anger, fear, etc. While compared with the humorous ads, the ATNA has a higher level of perceived negativity and a higher level of all the triggered negative emotions. So among the 3 types of ads, in all, the adness is perceived to be more unique, realistic, empathetic, and attention-getting by the audience. Lastly, we have study 3 to investigate the boundary conditions, or when such ads are more likely to be effective for advertisers. So we focus on 2 boundary conditions: ad negativity and product status. And the results show that adness are more effective with a moderate versus high degree of ad negativity, and they are more effective for products signaling a low versus high social status. So that's the recap for the article.
Okay, that's super cool. So the even shorter version than your like really nice summary would be that basically people like it when ads make fun of them a little bit. Is that correct? Or
Mhm. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's an emerging phenomenon where you find ads that point some negative information um, of the ad audience rather than competitors or their own products. So they are directly say something bad about the audience.
yeah, so being made fun of by an ad is, catches my attention. People actually
Mhm.
like it when the ad is actually making fun of them, which is kind of interesting as well too.
Yeah,
Um, that's cool. And you say sort of a moderate level, so they don't want it to be too strong. And I guess probably if it's too low, it doesn't capture attention. Is that right? Or
yeah,
That's
that's a
yeah.
finding from our study 3. The moderate degree of ad tend to be work well. Moderate negativity tend to be work well.
and you also
So
mentioned
it's a very
like, oh, sorry,
subtle.
go ahead. Yeah,
Oh, sorry, Colin. Sorry to interrupt. So
that's
just a
okay.
very subtle form of negative humour, and I think that's an important point about the study 3, the last experiment, where it looks at some of those boundary conditions. So it has to be subtle and at the right level, but not too negative.
Not too
Mhm.
overt. We don't want to get slammed by ads.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned as well too, like the difference in social. Sorry, I wrote this down here, but I just said the social part. The low and high social. What was it? Status, right? Yeah. So like,
product
can you give me
status.
examples like what's like a low status or high status just to bring that to life for people?
So for example, for fast-moving consumer goods, they are more likely to be suitable for adopting such strategy according to our findings. But for luxury items, for conspicuous, for products which signaling a high social status, they are not really good options for adopting such audience targeted negative ads.
Okay, so basically it's like, by fast moving consumer goods, you mean stuff like things in the grocery store or,
Yes,
like my laundry
yeah,
detergent, stuff like that, versus like, I don't want my like LV bag, making fun of me in an
no,
ad. Is that right? Or,
no. Yeah, because negativity tend to be relevant with uh, mass market or low-end market, but for high-end market, consumers tend to avoid using negative appeals. So that's why
yeah,
we identify this moderator of
yeah.
product status.
Why do you think that's the case? Why do you think that it's the case that like luxury goods don't seem to find this technique that effective?
I think this is based on our finding from study one, because study one, we develop some questions which ask participants, when do they prefer this kind of ad execution, what product categories, and they indicate that they do not wish to see this ad strategy to be adopted in more fancy or classy or high-end brands or or product with social status. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's from also from the Asian culture where we adopt the interview study one. Yeah.
And I think in the kinds of examples where we found these kinds of advertising in practice, that it was typically with those kinds of products, and it was typically often aimed at people's working lives, wasn't it, Eddie? Some of the examples
Mm-hmm.
were about that, and very much sort of targeted at more the fast moving consumer goods rather than more luxury sort of high end goods.
Okay. Any sort of ideas as to why you think that might be the case? Like why people don't like it or didn't report that they wanted it in high-end goods?
I think the negative appeal, as well as the some of the negative some of the audience targeting negative ads, they adopt humor appeal. They are not expected by the audience in a product with very high social status. So they prefer these luxury items to be fancy, to be classy. They don't want to be made fun of, or they don't want to be targeted negatively by this kind of luxury items. So, but in other words, on the other extreme, for like milk tea, for music app, which are commonly used humor ads or negative ads, they are more used to adopt. They are more accustomed, or they are more used to this negative or humor appeal. But not the case according to our sample in the interview for like luxury items or even high-end
Mm-hmm.
brands. But that's a
Cool.
good question to further explore in future research. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So I guess there's some natural kind of implications for advertisers, right? So like, what do you think are some of the key takeaways you think that would be useful for those working in the ad industry?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and obviously very relevant to JAR readers. I think the first way in which it's relevant to people working in the ad industry is that, at least to our knowledge, we've kind of defined this type of humor and this type of negativity that's used in ads. So, we see different kinds of humorous appeals. We see different kinds of negative ads, but it's not common to be seeing ads which are targeted at the individual in the advertisement. Again, the main point there is that it's a subtle way. So in a sense, partly what the article sought to do was to try and identify and distinguish these types of ads from others, and to show how humor can be used in more subtle ways to have, positive consequences in terms of typical sort of advertising variables. So the first, I think, was it sort of distinguishes this type of ads and helps to conceptualize it from other types of negative ads or humorous ads. And I think the second is that in the studies, we look at some of the boundary conditions. So we show when it does and doesn't work. Now, granted, there could be lots more exploration around some of these themes, but as Eddie alluded to a moment ago, product status was one of them, and that was primarily defined from, I suppose, where we saw the advertisements and some of the qualitative research that we did up front. And then I think the implication there is, as Eddie pointed out, is more useful for kind of fast-moving consumer goods type of products, what we termed in the paper as lower status products rather than higher status products. And then I think the other boundary condition was in terms of ad negativity. So, as we talked about at the start, the degree of negativity has to be pitched at the right level, what we defined in the paper as a more moderate type of negativity. But once you're too negative with people, obviously they respond negatively to it. So it's about getting the right balance and using that humor in the right way to sort of poke fun at people, but which people can relate to.
Yeah, I think it's really neat that you've identified. Sorry, Eddie, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, following Ben's summary, and in our paper, we identified that the fundamental difference between audience targeted negative ads with other negative ads or humor appeals is that they use negative ads to target the ad audience. So for other negative ads, they may say something negative about competitors, about their own products, about their own services, so they can further advance. But for Atna, they say something undesirable or something negative about the consumers. They say, well, they kind of poked at you and say, well, you're bad, you're awful. So in this way, they are kind of unique and draw consumer attention. Yeah, but it has to be used carefully in terms of the ad negativity and also which product category they are used. Yeah.
I like that. So it's a new, tool for the advertisers to have in their tool belt, right? A new type of ad they can potentially play with, but something that they want to be careful and probably, I'm guessing, pre-test and do some sort of like checking on that before they go live with one of these ads, make sure that they have that right level. I noticed as well too, and I love the fact that it's something that's sort of emerging and more common in Asia. Do you think this would work well in Western contexts? Do you think this is the case that this should be or could be adopted more by advertisers in other parts of the world?
Yeah, actually, we have concluded in the limitation section. We think this is the first and very interesting and promising directions for future research, because this kind of ads are primarily identified in the Asian markets, where we see less common in the Western markets. We assume that this might due to the economic situation, say the low consumption status, or in Asian markets, we identify the lying flat phenomenon where young generations, they let go of their aspirations, etc. So this might have some culture underlying process related to culture factors. That is definitely the next step. We will further advance the study to check, to test whether these ads will be perceived in the same way or similar way, or even differently in Western markets compared with Asian markets.
So just to add,
we don't have an answer yet. Yeah.
Sorry, just to add to what Eddie's saying there, this was one of the key questions, is how we distinguish these types of ads from other types of negative ads or humorous ads that may exist. And of course, we all know of lots of examples of ads which use negativity and ads which use humor. I'm thinking back myself to quite a controversial set of advertisements in the UK, probably about 20 years ago, from a brewer, which used this subtle kind of humor in their ads, and it became quite controversial because it was relating back to sort of World War II and that kind of era. But it was designed in a sort of funny way and to sort of poke fun at certain things. But it also, when we looked at and compared those different types of humorous ads that we found and those different types of negative ads that we found, there were none that we could find which were directed right at the audience. And so again, that's what I suppose made it really interesting. I think probably is one of the contributions of the article, really, is to distinguish.
It's definitely interesting as a new phenomenon. Yeah. So just to circle back though, I'm an advertiser sitting in New York listening to this podcast. Should I try this or not? What do you think? Like, I know it hasn't been studied yet, but like, would you give it a go or would you not give it a go?
I think definitely. I think, as Eddie pointed out, definitely further research is needed. I think we've identified some of the boundary conditions, but I think of course, got to test these things, and I think that's an interesting question, definitely.
Cool. Okay. I'm also curious as well too. Is like, where did you get the idea for this? Like, how did this come? I'm always curious about articles and like where the ideas for them come from.
So basically, like we previously mentioned, the research idea comes from observation of the advertising industry in Asian markets. So we initially identified some this emerging trend where ads, they say something negative or something awful about the ad audience. For example, an ad tagline of a music streaming app, they say, well, you love music so much, you must live a hard life. While some other ads, they are very harsh and even sounds insulting. For example, an ad slogan I recall that for the milk tea brand, they read, "You're already fat. You won't get any fatter with another cup." So we think, this kind of ad is interesting, and because the other ad they say something negative about their competitors, but about their own products, but this kind of ad they say something negative about the consumers. So they kind of like say, look, you're bad, you're awful. We wonder if these ads actually work, and if so, when do they work? So these ideas, they initiate our article.
That's awesome. So really just observation of, what's happening in the marketplace. That's fantastic. Yeah. Cool. Okay. I'm curious as well too, because I know research can often have challenges. Did you run into any during your research in this article? And if so, like what were they and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, absolutely. Like any research, it's full of challenges. I think the first challenge that we found with this was distinguishing this type of advertisement from other ones, as I mentioned before, and as Eddie mentioned. So, originally we started to think about other different types of negative ads, other types of humorous ads, but that's what sort of forced us to start thinking carefully about how these ads differed. To be quite open, though, we're really grateful to reviewers who really pushed us to do that in the review process. And I think, forced us to distinguish these types of ads more from what currently exists out there. So again, I think that's one of the nice contributions of the article, but certainly one of the things that we found a challenge. And I think that's how on analyzing these ads, in a sort of performing a sort of content analysis of various ads, that's when we had noticed that, actually targeting that sort of negative humor at the person who's at the audience is not something we found with other ads. And so, but that was the main challenge at the start. And we're obviously really, as I said, grateful to reviewers for helping us try and resolve that. The article was a very different article when we first sent it in, and so it's always good to see, how it evolves and how it changes, and how the review process really helps. So that was one of the challenges. And I think the second main challenge was probably around methodology. Again, the article started off as a different article, and with primarily focusing upon the qualitative research that was done. But again, it was, because reviewers had urged us and pushed us to sort of look at what sort of effects that this would have quantitatively, that we designed the two quantitative studies. So study 2, the first of the quantitative studies, was about distinguishing it from these other types of negative and humorous ads, and showing, what quantitative differences that led to. And then study 3 was looking at the boundary conditions and seeing, how much you can poke fun at people before they get too aggravated that they respond negatively. So yeah, those are probably the two key challenges. First, the kind of conceptualization and definition of this type of advertising, and contrasting it with other types of advertising. And secondly, the methodology, and forcing ourselves to develop more quantitative ways of exploring this phenomenon.
Yeah, I think it's turned into a really nice paper, a really nice article, and I think it's a nice package of studies you've got as well too. But I definitely empathize with you that the review process can be challenging, but hopefully it can lead to really nice outcomes like you've got here with this article as well.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And so finally, like, where to next, right? Do you think there's more avenues? You've spoken about the need for more research on this in Western contexts already. Like, are there other sort of avenues or other things you think you'd like to see more research on this topic? Or
Yeah, I think we have mentioned in previous answers that the promising direction may be a cross-cultural study where we can test the effectiveness of such ads in Western markets. And also the underlying process mirrors further exploration as we have this economic situation in Asia where consumers, they tend to have lower consumption status, or they are lying flat. Whether this drive the emergence of adness is another promising direction to explore. So yeah, that's the plan for the next steps.
But certainly, just to add to what Eddie said there, if you think about the way that economies are changing, and the kinds of challenges that people are facing with, less secure employment, and all the sort of cost of living challenges and pressures that we're under, it very much sort of relates to, some of the themes that we brought up in the article around that kind of economic context in some Asian countries. So, quite possibly there's an alignment of, conditions there. And so I think it might be quite interesting to do more research about, how it applies to these different contexts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I wonder if there's like certain segments of consumers. I'm guessing probably younger people might be open to it. I don't know, or if there's other sort of types of characteristics of people, that might be more prone to responding positively to this. Or
yeah, I think we're also. Like you said, we think that like personality or personal trait may also be some of the underlying process. We assume that more optimistic consumers or younger generations who are easily accepted by, who will more easily accept negative ads, or the humor appeal will be the major, or be the more target for the adness. Yeah, personal trait definitely is important in the future directions. Yeah.
I'm wondering about media as well too. Because I'm wondering, like, do you think it'd be as effective on like TV as it would be on like an ad that appears in social media? or even a display ad on like a website? Like, do you think there's certain places where it might be more appropriate or less appropriate? Or do you think it's kind of a uniformly effective thing?
We haven't actually think about the ad medium or ad channel, but so far, to our observation, we have identified such ads in different media, like in web ads,
Oh,
social
okay.
media, or TV commercial. So we so far don't see any kind of limitation on the application of such ads in terms of ad channels or media.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't realize it was that widespread. That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, because in study one, we have collected various adness from different channels, different ad mediums. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So got a brand new type of ad, this audience targeted negative ad, so the app, right? And your key findings are that, moderate level is going to be more effective, right? It's better with lower status goods, so not luxury goods, more fast moving consumer goods. And you definitely encourage people to pre-test it and do a little bit of testing before running it. But it's a brand new sort of, neat phenomenon that we're hearing about here first in JAR, which is kind of cool.
Sure.
Yeah. Any other final things you wanted to comment on, or things you wanted to mention about the article, or other future research or topics? Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing from my side, but great initiative to run these sort of discussions about the articles. I think that could be a nice, neat feature of JAR, definitely.
That's what we're hoping. We're hoping to make it more approachable. You can be at the gym and hearing about the latest research and insights and going behind the article as well too. So
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ben and Eddie, for taking time to be interviewed by me today. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing more great research from you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Colin.